Hello. So today I wanted to talk about Pierre-Auguste Renoir, one of the pioneers of French Impressionism. And about Renoir, just wanted to start with this slide because it's beautifully showcased that how distinct his style was and how his styles moved like over the years, like how they were changed. Suppose this is one of his early self-portraits, and you can see the lines, like, right, like the vertical lines, and with time like they got very like like they're mixing now. And then at the end of his life you can see that like how his like the color palette, the like strokes got softer and softer, and then like what we actually call the Renoir style is actually this, right? But he also has a lot of like paintings of these other styles. So I wanted to start with this because like when we talk about Renoir, there is a lot of debate about him, that he was not a very rebellious painter and everything, but and he was pretty successful in doing what he did. And but I think like his rebellion was something else. So I wanted to talk about it, and that's why I wanted to start with this, that like he was a very versatile artist. So these are very early work of Renoir, and then they don't look like his work at all. So when sometime I see some of his work and I'm like, whose work is this? And then I say it's Renoir's, like, what? And then now when I learn more about it, it's about the we have to understand the Parisian salon system. Like at that time, like after Napoleon's victory, like there is a new Paris going on, like everybody is booming, like the Paris is getting bigger and everything. But at the same time there was that very strict academy of art who would still have their like very strict rules, and they would organize salons. So those were the art exhibitions where you have to be like you have to like be taught by the academy, and also like you have to compete. And then like after the competition the jury was very strict, and then like only after that you could get some commission, some exposure. There was no other way. So that was like the very traditional way. And Renoir was not a wealthy person. So his father was a tailor and his mother was a seamstress. And then like he started working in a porcelain like workshop in very early age. So what Renoir was doing in the porcelain workshop is that he would paint, and he actually painted very fast. So porcelain work is very delicate because like if you don't work properly then it will break, right? The plates and the glasses and everything. So you cannot move your wrist, like you have to be very like organized to draw, like to paint on a porcelain plate. And that gave him a lot of like texture, like lot of delicacy in his hands. So they, although like he was like that, like he was pretty like good situated, like good condition in like that, but like you can see that like these are delicate work, right? Like these dresses and everything, but the face, the other stuff, those are still not delicate. And this is like a very like this is a commissioned work, so you can see that this is very rigid, but he still tried to put some like lace work, some colors, something, that would still like, so Renoir was trying to do something else, but at the same time he would not be able to do it because like he had to run his family. And then what happened is that there was the other like places that artists will start like making their own like artistic thing like out of the academy. And then there he met Monet, another person of the French Impressionism. And then like they would, you can see that they would start these works, right? Like you can see this is like, you can just tell this is sky, these are like landscapes. And the thing about this time is like a lot of things happen at this time. Like I was talking about the industrialization, but at the same time, the first time the tube was invented for colors. Like before that, the painters could not take their like colors outside of their studio because it will dry up, right? But at this time, the tube paints are coming out in the market, so they could take their tubes, they could take their like portable easels and everything outside, and then like they can take a train or something and go outside of Paris and draw something. So this was like revolution for them, to be honest. And another interesting thing is photography. So photography was invented at the same time, and always I was thinking that how come that like they like impressionism and photography actually flourished together, like they were not hindering each other. How? So you can see that like the impressionists were trying to capture what photographs can, that they were trying to get like more like idealist, like more glimpse, more moments, more actual light, actual colors, right? What photography could. And photography was trying to take from impressionism, and then like that how delicate photography can be, because photography at that time was very rigid, very technical. So one was taking from another, and also they had a huge new population that they were interested in art, right? The middle class is booming, and then like it was a very beautiful time for everybody, to be honest. So you can see that like Renoir is still painting those, and he is also starting like these. But I so you can see here, but Renoir being Renoir. So now when we see these pictures and we tell that, hey, those were very like leisurely, impressionism is very just beautiful things. And but we have to understand now that it's not that. It's that some not so wealthy people, not so wealthy painters, artists from like normal like households, they were trying to be like up. They were trying to be like in the society somewhere. You can see here that Renoir would paint like their friends, their groups. This woman is like will be later his wife. And then you can see that like they are just eating in a boat party, and then like Renoir, Monet, everybody would just sit in like in the riverside, and they would look outside and everything. So this is a very ordinary life. So they were trying again to be like photography, to be like to tell their own stories. And today we think that these are just beautiful images, but at that time this was rebellion. That you are painting ordinary people, ordinary life in ordinary setting. That is rebellion at the time. And you can see the colors, like the very sunny, very beautiful colors, the sunlight, the people's dresses, like this. I just think this image is just so beautiful. And about the women is that, like, at that time women are also getting more freedom that they were never used to, and then the lower class, lower middle class women are getting more freedom, more exposure and everything. So the artists will hang around with them, and like everything was a very good timing for all those arts to flourish. And then I think Renoir is being like happy, and then you can see here. Now I wanted to go actually today about like the light and the shadow, which I found really interesting recently, which I never really looked at. So if you remember the last picture, that was a very bright picture. Overall, the whole thing was like very bright. But here you can see that there are more light, less light, right? So it seems like they are dancing under these trees, right? Or like, I don't know, maybe like there are lights or something, but I can tell that light is coming through the leaves or somewhere. And then these places where are those spots, those are like the sunlight, right? So he is trying to paint sunlight. So they had their own things, all of them, like all the impressionists. Suppose Pissarro was more interested in like very ordinary landscapes, lifestyle, very hardworking lifestyle. Monet was obsessed with water. So Monet was trying to paint every kind of water. And then at the same time, Renoir was very interested with light. So you can see here that like how he paints things as if they're luminescent. He loved that. And then one thing about impressionism is you have to go very close to things. Like suppose just looking at something, it looks like an ordinary scene. It's actually an ordinary scene. You can see here that this person's face is cut. This like because it almost looks like a photograph. He's trying to make a photograph. And then like so and then one thing I love about it is that when you go very very close to a impressionist picture, then you really understand the strokes, and then you can tell what is happening there. So like even I think I forgot who was that, but like he I think Surat or somebody, like he put like dots, like you could see like each of the dots. And then like Van Gogh is very like famous for his like very impasto strokes. And now, like we are talking about Renoir today, Renoir was very famous for his soft, delicate, horizontal strokes. So you can see all of the things are very small strokes, but like very horizontal, very like but I think I loved like the details and at the same time the color, like how you can paint the light. So yeah, this is one of his very famous paintings. But recently I went to Barnes Foundation and I was looking at it and I was mesmerized. I would really suggest any of you, if you ever have a chance, go to Impressionist exhibitions and then look very close. So you can see here that again they're inside a forest. They're doing a picnic. This is one woman. This is a woman. Their little child. I don't know what this is. This maybe is a dog. This is a dog. Like there is like some other people. And Impressionists didn't like to make like shadow as in like black or gray. So they used to use blue for that. But Renoir was trying to do like these different colors. So he would use, suppose the color he was using, he would use the other color, like the darker shade of that color for these. And then like at this time, like the paint brushes like were also changing, so they would like be able to do a lot of different things, and photography wasn't still being able to catch that. Like photography still couldn't, like when there is a lot of light and then you have a thing and then the shadow is very dark, so photography was still trying to be like more like softer, but it was still like not being able to, I don't think if it still is like the soft, like light soft shadow, but I think like I loved the idea of this shadow. Like every one of the places you can tell that the light is coming through something. So yeah, I loved the idea of using colors to make light and shadow. And then I think if this is a maybe a noon time, right? And then this is like a closer look of this. Like you can see there is light, right? And then like there is light, and then like there is almost no like outline. So almost they're like flooding in light, and the subjects are just like mixing with the environment. So this was so naturalistic that that actually set the stone of Impressionism. But now this, you can see, this is almost, I think, like a afternoon evening time, maybe in my head, because like it looks like the colors got darker. You can see this is more yellow, right? So maybe the sun is up here. So like now they're like getting the sunshine here, something like that. So yeah, you can just look at the colors and you can tell that like which time of the day or something, and how the people and the trees and everything is like just flooding in light. I loved that. So yeah, but again, Renoir, Renoir. So at some time, like so now, after, until now, he is doing like other work. He is still submitting his work to Salon, and then he is like also doing work with Impressionists. And then they actually had their first exhibition in a photography gallery, like not, I think his name was Nadar. So like his photography gallery, like he gave them to use that for their exhibition, and people hated it. They got their name Impressionist from there because like one of the critics said that this is not real art, this is an impression of an art. So like how they got their name. But again, now Renoir is still doing that, but he also went to the Franco-Prussian War, and then like, but he wasn't much there. But like after that, he went to Italy, and then like for some time he had a thing that he was feeling that Impressionism is not the right way. He had a idea that we should go back to the classical roots. And then he actually like he never actually was a total like impressionist thing, but like suppose in these images, this image actually he started like making this picture. This is called umbrella. This is around 1890 or something. And then like you can see that these are very Renoir style pictures, right? Like this woman, this kid, like their hair, like everything. But after some time, like when he had his new revelation that we should go back to the classical roots, then like he totally changed this person and this person and the umbrellas, like he added those umbrellas, and now you can see these very strict lines, right? Very defined lines, very defined dress and everything. And this is nothing like what we saw in the last images that he were like making with Monet and everybody when they would go to like outside and do stuff. And now this is very classical, right? So he's like changing his ideology again, because one thing is he was seeing that around him is like everybody is just talking about art and everything, and he would say that people talk about art so much that they would just like sleep and they cannot wake up in the morning and then they don't paint. So like one thing about Renoir was he was very hardworking, and there was not a single day that he wouldn't draw or paint or work. So he didn't like that, like how like fluffy the whole thing was becoming. So he wanted to go back to the classical route, that like maybe that is the way, maybe we are diverting way too much. So that made him like come back to the roots a little. And then like you can see here, this is also at the same time. So this was his wife Eileen, and then like you can see that like the structures you can see, right? Like the very they are not as defined as this one, but again if you just look at these paintings, you cannot tell those are Renoir's painting, to be honest. Like I couldn't tell. And then like suppose this is a very confusing picture. So anyway, so now he is having these revelations, and then but after some time he came back again. So like I think one thing I was telling about Renoir is that he was a very pragmatic person. So he knew that like he has to run his family, and then like also he always wanted to work, so he would do that like what people want, and at the same time he would also do something for himself. So I think that that's the idea of like one for the kitchen, one for the soul. So he would still make like portraits, and like you can see this is again Renoir style. And one thing about like he painted a lot of like nudes and lot of women and everything. And then like these colors, like these very darkish colors, like people didn't love them at the beginning, but later people really loved them. And you can see that like how again the lines are getting softer and softer, right? So I think it really went with his like life, like whenever like he was a very tough situation mentally, like then he would go to very stern images, but he would come back again to his very soft like palette and everything. And then like you can see this picture is almost like blue and green and very dark. And so yeah, I think like this came back again to his actual style. And then this slide I wanted to show that like he after that he would keep both of his styles. So he drew a like made a very famous painting of Madame Charpentier, and then like that gave him access to a lot of people, and then he would portray a lot of people. And then one thing about his portrait was that he would make people look very soft, very like kind, very nice. So like his pictures just tell that maybe that person is a very nice person. And then like he loved that like he wanted to make something that you want to touch, you want to feel, you want to stroke your hands on, or like you want to like just love that thing. So that's how he made his subjects look like, and people loved that for their portraits. And then like he became one of the very famous portrait painters of his time, and he was making a lot of money. And then he had a big family, like he had 3 kids, and he would also make tons of portrait of them. And then like his son John was like also a very famous filmmaker later. And as I was saying about photography, that at this time artists, they would use photographs. Like suppose your portrait model is not coming to for like 100 sittings, right? So what you do, they would take a picture of that person, and then they would look at the like picture and then make portraits as we do now. So as far as I found out, like without some very strict um like people, photography and impressionism was like just went hand to hand. And then I found it a very beautiful thing, that like how we are so like afraid of AI right now, and then like how they could go hand to hand like very easily. But anyway, I was talking about Renoir, and then like you can see here that like this is actually his boy. Like this is this boy, and then like this boy, and then this and this. They're all the same boy. His kid, and then like so he didn't allow them to like cut their hairs, because like he had this very luscious like blonde hair. He would love that. And now people hate him most because of that. Like people say that like he just made a very ideal, very like the very ideal beauty standard for like for his models. And then like there was no difference. But I think that like everyone has the ownership of his work and his ideology and everything. And if Renoir wanted to see his things beautiful and pretty, he should. So like, and that's why maybe still now people look at his like work and feel happiness. So I think like Gabrielle, like she was also like their nanny, and like later she was a lot of like paintings models. This is reading one of his very another famous piece. And then I was just like how the dog, or maybe like this man, or like I think like Renoir's paintings still make people happy, and that's a very big thing. So I think like that's why I wanted to end with this thing, like with his thing, that like this is just a picture of a teacup. I started with Renoir's journey with porcelain paint, like porcelain like work, and you can see like even a teacup and a banana or like oranges, like even those, like he made those round flowy things, like you see those things. So he was still working with his like wrists, like still having that same porcelain like beauty. sadly, like at the end of his life, like he wouldn't able to move his wrist, like he got arthritis and he was very ill. But even after that, like he would take commissions, and then like he would make new paintings. And I think what he would do, he would like tie his paintbrush to his arms and paint with his arms. But Renoir made thousands and thousands of paintings, and like he actually like worked until the last of his day. So like I think like that's a very big thing for an artist, and I, I just loved that. And then like that's why I wanted to start with like end with this, that like there are too many unpleasant things in life. So if somebody wants to make something pretty, we should just let that person. Everything does not need to be politically correct. If you want to paint shadows and lights and everything, that's all right. Just do it. Okay, bye.